Well, thank you everybody for joining our Innovators in Publishing series. I'm joined with Nathan Hull, who is Chief Strategy Officer at Beat Technology, where he leads global strategy for digital reading and audiobook platforms used by publishers and retailers worldwide. Prior to Beat, Nathan launched the curated ebooks service Book Choice, served as Chief Business Development Officer at Mofibo. Have I pronounced that correctly?
Mofibo. It's okay.
Mofibo.
Yeah.
Helping expand the platform ahead of its acquisition by Storytel, as well as working as digital director at Penguin Random House and built their first studios. So, hello, Nathan. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Should we start off with our first question then?
Far away.
Why does direct audiobook sales feel like such an important conversation at this point within the publishing industry?
Mm. Well, I'm sure everyone who's tuned in will have seen audio being spoken about everywhere. Big numbers being spoken about, particularly in the US and UK, and growth in lots of other markets. So it's largely being touted as the biggest growth format. So everyone should have a slice of that pie, really. But going directly just means you're a little bit more in control of things. Your margins are probably going to be better. You're more aware of what your own readers and listeners are consuming. Um, yeah, so now it's just I think that the time was right for years, but now is even more right because the playing field has been leveled a little bit. So in the English speaking
Mm.
world and other parts, we really only had Audible as a platform to consume on for so long. That's been leveled out a little bit by Spotify arriving. And I think, if nothing else, that's just raised the attention around audio, full stop. Basically, we know from what Spotify are telling us, more and more people are listening. So it's finding new kinds of readers. So for any publisher, big or small, to now think about going direct, I think it's more important than ever. Because when there was only that one platform, there was still a reason in my view, to experiment at least with audio, but there was, you know, it was a safer ground, right? Because you just did what was necessary for one platform,
Yeah.
and the outcome was the outcome. Um,
Yeah.
but now there's a financial need. I imagine a lot of authors would be knocking on the doors as well, saying, "But why aren't my books available in audio?" And I can't think of a great answer that any publisher would really have, if I'm honest.
Yeah, for sure. So when you're speaking to publishers,
Hmm.
what's the biggest misconception you hear from them about selling audiobooks direct, or do you?
Yeah, sometimes people are kind of resigned to the fact that, but there's these platforms out there that we make money from already. Some people might say, look, I've tried this, but I'm not making any money. And then you end up diving deep into conversations around discoverability and everything
Mm.
related to discoverability, something you guys work a lot with.
Yeah.
Um, and even before that part, there's still the conversation quite often, and I imagine we'll discuss this afternoon, around the affordability of creating the audio in the first place. And if they haven't tried something on one of the existing platforms, then the publisher doesn't really have a sense of, earn out periods and what a P&L really should feel like against a given title. So we come
Mm.
across that a lot. And then simple things like the file size is is very big compared to the file size of an ebook.
Yeah.
So then people come across like, well, we don't know how to play it, where to play it, and these kind of problems didn't really exist for ebooks. So it's just
Yeah.
uh yeah, there's some misinformation out there, and there's some knowledge gaps because they haven't had to do it in the past.
Yeah. Certainly when we're talking to our publishers, we always say, what formats do you have? And they
Mm.
will say, and we say, do you have audiobooks? They say, we've got a few, we sell it through Audible mostly. Um, it's too expensive for us to
Yeah.
put all of our titles in there.
Yeah, and that's a common
Mm.
conversation. And again, then you loop it back around to the discoverability thing again. more and more and more audio is being made all the time in the traditional fashion. That problem is only going to get discoverability is probably only going to get greater as more and more books are also created using AI in a good
Yeah.
way. Um, which means lots of other parts of your workflow have to be much, much tighter. But again, when you're doing this directly as one of the options to market as a route to market, then you're in control of a lot more in that regard.
Yeah. Exactly. And you just mentioned about at the start about higher margins. So
Mm.
apart from higher margins, thinking beyond that, what's the strategic advantage to a publisher of owning the customer relationship and selling direct?
When What I would say is if one of your titles is on one of the other retail platforms, which they should be, right? In my view, you should
Yeah.
have content in most places. You can maybe window and play around, but the chances are someone will listen to your title and then you're not in any control on that retailer. I won't name anyone in particular for what is recommended next or what the upsell is next. You get nothing from it at all. Whereas if you're particularly with very genre specific publishers, someone listens to a particular title, that the next title that they're recommended is being recommended by you, the publisher, and it will be, in all likelihood, from your catalog. And it can be genre focused, it could be author focused. Lots more people are buying titles based on the narrator. There's all kinds of things, but you will be recommending something else from your service.
Mm,
Um, Depending on quite how you do it, you might be empowered with a lot more data. So habit data that comes from a lot of services. So the big guys out there are all learning and dining off of the data they garner from listener and reader habits all the time. And you get to learn a little bit more. If even if it's like a sale mechanic and not a subscription mechanic from your own site, you're going to know more about that consumer, what their purchase habits are, how often they purchase, what they purchase, the time of year, etc., how much they're willing to spend in a given year, and you can start to tailor how you communicate with them off the back of that. Not just selling them the next best read. That's the simple part and the obvious part, but you could once you're kind of skilled in this way of thinking, you can dive very deep.
yeah. So basically, owning the customer relationship, you think, is like where long-term value sits
I
for a
think so.
publisher.
Yeah. And I've worked at one of the biggest, and
Yeah.
they don't go direct to consumer almost because the problem's almost too big in a way. Maybe. I don't know. But I think there's a lot to be said in terms of the closeness of a publisher and an author to their reader listener. I keep
Mm,
interchanging the word reader and listener. To me, it's the same thing. But
yes.
and I don't
Yeah.
like the word consumer. So if I say reader, I mean listener as well. So they can really forge a much tighter bond, not just to sell them more stuff, but to communicate with them. Um, and whether there be some clever kind of marketing and sales mechanics within that to discount books and draw them back in for other things to invite them to events, signings, whatever it might be. There might be exclusive extra content. I just think building that bridge between the the publisher
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the reader and the author is extremely important. And other industries do this really well. Like a
Yes.
sense of fandom, right? And we don't
Yes.
publishing, we don't really use the word fan that much, right?
No.
Because it feels
Ever.
slightly cheap, but it's more the kind of domain of music and film or
Yeah.
something. But I would say in the music world, partly because
Yeah.
there's a lot more rights available. So like a record
Mm,
company could have, they don't always, but there's a lot more of these kind of 360 deals where they'll have recording rights, publishing rights, ticketing rights, merchandise rights, etc., etc., etc. There's a lot more they can
mm,
sell within that loop. Like old school fan clubs.
yes.
And so there's a lot more tightness between the creator and the conduit. And the conduit's like the publisher or the record company. And
Yeah.
there's a lot that can be done there. And I see, I see a lot of those kind of hints coming from different places at the moment in publishing. Spotify, who have
Yeah.
relatively recently gone into audio, are very, very good at the fandom side of things. So if you just look on their music service, they upsell tickets,
Yeah.
tell you who's playing in town. They upsell physical stuff. So I have bought vinyl through Spotify, like exclusive vinyl, a Spotify edition. I've
Oh,
bought
cool.
t-shirts. There's this about this fandom thing, and
Yeah.
you can't create that bond with your reader unless you're a bit more of a central protagonist.
Yeah.
And you should be if you're the publisher. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Not you should be, but you definitely need to have explored it.
Right. The we say to publishers, because we come up, obviously we do websites, so we
Yeah,
come up with it a lot. Why do I need to invest in my own website? We do still get that question.
yeah,
Uh, and we say, well, without the relationship with your consumer, every sale, you're basically rediscovering it if you're kind of just with the platforms. You can have repeat purchases, brand loyalty, subscriptions, memberships, and as you say, building fandom.
yep, yep. I use the phrase I always call like a digital sale,
Yeah,
particularly when it's not on your own e-commerce site, right? As a publisher, is an
yeah,
untethered sale. And every time, imagine you have a repeating author, and I remember this when I was at Penguin. Every time
mm,
someone come back and their new books come, you might have an email address, but essentially a lot of your marketing spend and effort, you're trying to find that same reader again. And you're just
yes,
the same money trying to find them again. And they should
yeah,
just be there. So I call those kind of untethered sales. And if you can tether them by just having a deeper bond on a direct to consumer
yeah,
and just makes a lot of sense, ultimately saves a lot of money and effort, and is probably more pleasing for both sides of the conversation, right? The read is going to feel closer, a little bit more special.
hmm,
And I imagine the publisher, who is also the retailer in that case, is going to feel a little bit better because they've made an easier sale.
yeah, exactly. And it's interesting what you say about the publisher who is the retailer, because something
Mm,
we always say is publishers, you need to think like retailers. You are retailers,
mm.
not just
Yeah,
publishers of content
yeah, yeah.
stories.
And it's quite strange, isn't it? Because I mean, you travel a lot, I know as well, but
Yeah.
it's quite different in the UK, I think, how we
Mm.
think about this. But then particularly just within Europe, as you move further east, it becomes more and more common that the publisher is actually the retailer as well. They like
Yes.
even have physical bookshops and they
Yes.
also be the distributor. And there's a whole more kind of holistic loop going on.
Mm.
And it's kind of quite commonplace. Whereas
Yeah.
less so here. We could spend hours picking that apart. But
And you mentioned something actually, which I just wanted to ask again, because you said you recommend that the publisher owns the direct relationship with the reader,
mm,
but also has presence on the major platforms. So
yep.
that's important. Is it about complementing these different channels of sales?
Well, everything's different per market, right? I
Mm,
don't know where the people tuning
yeah.
in, which markets they're coming from. But I think I come across this a lot. Less common than I used to, right? But there used to be this real misnomer that going D2C meant you didn't put your content anywhere else, which is just
Mm,
ridiculous when you think about it, because you'd really be biting the hand that feeds. Like, imagine launching a platform and then not delivering your content to all of the other retailers that have always paid through for years on end for you. But there's a lot you can do in between. So going direct to consumer with audio, particularly if you haven't really done a lot around audio in the first place, for me, it's about experimentation and trying bits and pieces. And lots of people will do windowing. So if you have an ability, either you might have a subscription service even, or just a la carte retail from your e-commerce
mm,
audio. just window the content, and by that I mean make it available on your platform first for a period of time. So there's a reason for people to come to your platform first. Lots of people will do that. They'll do that in print world with like exclusive editions or signed editions or a different
Yeah.
jacket. So there's this collectability thing, looping back into that fandom kind of thought.
Interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
and there's also it's again about for me, it's about forging that closeness between publisher and reader and the author in between. As a
Mm,
publisher, you have a relationship with the author that only you can provide. You
yeah.
may also be selling your content on all the other major retailers. They are coming to you saying, could we have some signed editions? Or can the author come into our store and do this? Or can the author write this extra thing? Or whatever it might be. You're the gatekeeper to that creator. So therefore, you're in prime position to work most closely with the creator, is how I see it.
Mm,
Um, there's so many things you can do, and particularly with audio, I think it's really aligned with live events. So something that's happened for decades and decades are author readings. Well, what's an author
yes.
reading? It's spoken word. It's just no one's hit record on it. But it's the same medium, really, right? You're listening
Yeah.
to the story as opposed to reading with your eyes or your fingers. You're listening. Um, so there's something, and we're starting to see this with some of Beats platforms in other
Mm,
parts of Europe where we are aligning the transaction, or in some cases, a subscription service to live events.
mm,
But you can only maybe access those live events if you're signed up at the site,
yeah.
the publisher's
Nice.
site. Those,
Yeah.
those, and they're kind of old-fashioned ideas just
Yeah.
applied in the digital age, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Mm.
And yeah, so kind of, I guess from a publisher's perspective, like what do you come across from publishers you talk to that m makes them say think direct audio sales are complicated, particularly for them?
Mm. Sometimes I think depends on the
Yeah.
market and the size of the publisher. I think it can feel
Mm.
quite daunting because it's the great unknown, and
Yes.
almost because the noise around audiobooks has got so great. It's for some, I know it's just become even more daunting to think about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Um, and there can be a knowledge gap across the whole spectrum of these things, from like creating the audio to how to market it to selling it and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
I think there's probably it's probably down to the fact in the US and UK, we've largely been dominated by one platform
Mm.
for a
Yeah.
long, long time, which has just created, I think, well, laziness would be a harsh word, but some kind of just faux comfort that
Yeah.
we just do that. We know we've worked out how to get the files to them and the metadata, and then hopefully we'll make some money.
Yeah.
There may be some marketing opportunities along the way and what we've learned from that. But I think because of that, this like the skill set's probably withered a little bit and the knowledge
Mm.
gap's widened.
Yeah.
Um, so
Some
yeah,
of yeah. Some of our publishers, when we're when they're exploring audio or we're encouraging audio to
mm,
be sold from the site, they feel that the technicalities of it are just too
yeah, okay.
complex and they just
And
don't.
that's really true because
Yeah,
selling it from a site, you'll have questions around DRM. Do we need to do
yeah,
DRM? Do we don't?
yeah,
Don't is where I would say for audio in particular that it's just not quite there at the moment, and there's lots of things that can protect your file anyway, right? So
yeah,
this is why we've built Beats built a new thing called Shelf, which is to kind of alleviate this completely. So
yeah,
when we faced these things in the past, and I know you and I have chatted around things in the past and tried to work out like what's the barrier, and it does seem to be that if they can sell the file, then how do they tell their their consumer, their buyer, what to
Yeah.
do with it, where to listen to it. How do you get this file, be it an MP3 or whatever it is, from A to B? And
Yeah.
that's always been a problem. So of course, then people default to going to their favorite audiobook retailer, which doesn't help the publisher going direct to consumer. So we've built this thing called Shelf, which removes all of that and allows the purchase to just appear in an app that's just there and they can play immediately.
Yeah.
So that removes some of that friction.
Yeah.
Um, because I think you're right. That's been there. What do you do with the file where even though a consumer has the same challenges with they buy an ebook and then have to get from A to B with the
Yeah.
file, ebooks have been in our lives like well, audiobooks have been around for a long, long, long time too, but pr they've been very, very prevalent for a long time. So people have just got a little bit more used to what to do with it.
Yeah.
Whereas audio just feels like this newer thing to the person on the street, even though it's not.
Yeah.
Mm.
A bit intimidating for them. But
Yeah,
like
but
if they were to use Shelf, then they still own the customer relationship and all the data behind
yeah.
the
So the
listening
same.
behavior.
So
Yeah.
if you're publisher X, you have a platform, you're selling audiobook Y,
Yeah.
you sell it invisibly in the background. There's an authentication process. It says Sarah bought the new book by, I won't embarrass you by trying to think of a funny name, by author Z. It just appears in Shelf. But in that case, Shelf is just a vehicle. It's just a very nice audiobook player.
Hmm.
And it does all the things you would expect your nice audiobook player to do.
Yeah.
But the relationship stays with the publisher who's also retailed the
Which
book.
is great.
Yeah. And then the one thing we built on the back of this, trying to think, because in the UK, for lots of complicated reasons we don't have to get into, subscription models aren't
Yes.
the norm.
Yeah.
And by that I mean pay £10 a month and get everything. It's not really what happens here, but it's everywhere else.
Yeah.
And everywhere else is a really nice user journey, right? It's just you don't have to think about it. If you don't like the book, you stop it, you go on to the next one and just keep moving.
Yeah.
Um, the one thing that was missing in the kind of the journey of purchasing a book, listening to it on an app, is then what happens when you get to the end and you really love it? And because on a
Yes.
subscription app, you have the recommendation and all of these kind of things. So imagine you're in I don't know, a fantasy fiction series and you've just completed book
Mm.
one and you love it.
Yeah.
That's quite, for years, literally for a couple of years, we wrestled with this conundrum of how to make that journey as seamless as we could. But now we've added a little function where there's a heart, which is like a wish list. So if you get to the
Yeah.
end of that book and you love it, of course, there's a preview for the next one in that series or whatever we've told the recommendation algorithm to do. You hit the heart. That then sends a message back to the publisher retailer. It says,
Yeah.
Sarah loved this book. She wants to read book two. And then the cycle happens again. So it's pretty
That's
seamless, pretty
great.
good with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if a small, because this we're
Mhm.
talking about affordable selling
Yeah.
audiobooks affordably.
Mm.
If a small or mid-sized publisher wanted to get started, um, what would you suggest they should focus on first?
In audio,
Yes.
firstly, I would do the research, right? There,
Yeah.
as a consumer, play around with the platforms that you like, right? And get a
Mm,
feel for what, if you're not already an audio consumer yourself, have a play with Audible, have a play with Spotify or a couple of the smaller indie services that are out there and get a feel for what you like and don't like. Get a feel for how they promote things, and then
mm,
that'll get your marketing mind working and all of that. There's tons and tons of uh, information out there and panel like London Book Fair next week.
mm.
There's at least 4 or 5 panels related to audio. Just go,
Yeah.
there's no shame in not knowing things. I don't know most things about publishing, so I go and sit and listen, learn, and make lots of notes. Go and listen and learn. There's lots of friendly people to ask questions of. Then match it, depending on your market, match it against your list and
Yeah.
be smart. You're gonna no doubt have some authors that are kind of audio friendly. in terms of the way they think, and they might be with an agent that's kind of open-minded or not. Play around with a safe list. You're gonna have to do, if you haven't ever recorded before, this is where you might need to do some clever P&L
Yeah.
and work out which of the titles you represent are more likely to, if you feel they're more likely to become profitable
Mm,
quickly or have a chance of it, they're the ones I would lend more time on in terms of working with a studio, doing some proper casting around it, putting some
yeah.
marketing effort with that. I would record a few others more simply and put them into the system too. So you've got a catalog of some size to recommend against, you
Mm,
know. And then to be, well, I shouldn't, I was about to say, oh, and then to be controversial, but it really shouldn't be anymore. Look at AI. If you're in the right, if for some publishers, again, depending on the genre
mm,
you publish, you have to be open-minded to it, particularly if budgets are a concern. The
yeah.
platforms out there, so like 11 Labs, who will be at London in a major way, they have a very easy entry level method for creating audiobooks. And
Great.
just particularly, I mean, they're in like a ridiculous amount of languages, right? But
Yeah.
particularly in the major languages, it's very, very, very hard to discern anymore. So I think we need to remove some of this cynicism, skepticism around it, because if you don't at least be open-minded and experiment in that, then you're going to just fall further and further behind. Because the vast majority of books are not recorded in audio, is the simple truth of things. So small publishers
Yes.
who haven't yet gone into audio, they're not they're not completely alone in this. All of the major houses will have banks and banks of stuff that is not yet
Yeah.
recorded in audio because there hasn't been uh, a way to do that completely profitably yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would really look at AI, and there's no excuse not to look at that either at the moment, and particularly when you're looking at consider what genre you're creating in. And there's always been this argument, oh, like it might be good for non-fiction, but I'm not really sure about fiction where you've got to have suspense and drama and
Mm,
all like acting. But these tools are like the worst version we'll ever hear is today's, because tomorrow's is going to be better. So they're just improving at such a rapid rate. So I would certainly look at that A/B test. And then there's also something to think around rights, because it might just be
yeah.
that you're sat on some titles that somebody else might want, and you
Mm,
just don't have the skill set, the time, the resources, whatever it might be, to do that. There may be people willing to co-produce with you, do a rights agreement with you for your titles. So there's all kinds of things there to look at. There's also lots to be careful with, but
yeah.
there's a lot of opportunity.
And do you recommend that they maybe start with their existing audiences as a publisher? So they've got their author communities, social media followers, probably,
Mm.
um, to activate the readers into listeners, reading, reading
Yeah, I mean, if
listeners.
you've got a community
Yeah,
base
yeah,
or a database of any kind, to
yeah,
then absolutely I'd go to that. I would even go to them first in some cases. If you're
right.
really sure what to make in the first
Yes.
instance, and you've got, and you regularly speak to your community or your buyers in any way whatsoever, in the voice that you want to use, find out what it
Mm,
is they want to listen to. You know,
yeah,
and then simple things. Are people searching for audio on your websites?
yeah.
Do you know that people are looking for audio versions of certain titles? That gives you a really good indication of where the demand is and what to make.
Yeah,
There's all sorts of things.
exactly.
But yeah, if you've got an instant group of people to go to, then do it. And they might also be your marketeers. So the one great thing with audio, right,
Mm,
is yes, if you haven't done it before, there's some new stuff to learn and you've got to make a thing. But
yeah,
in terms, if we're calling an audiobook a format within reading, right?
yeah.
The ways in which you can market with audio, there's so many more ways to use marketing assets than you can with an
Mm,
ebook or a print book. With an ebook or
yeah.
a print book, what have you got? You've got the author to do an interview.
Yeah.
You've got some text, you can do serialization, you've got some images you can use, but there's not a lot. But with audio, you've got sound.
Yeah.
You can use that in so many different ways, right? So you can use that in podcast marketing, you can use that in uh, audio ads in lots of different ways while the audiobooks are
Yeah.
being recorded. Make sure you take lots of photos of the actors in the room.
Mm.
You can generate a lot of AV content while these books are being recorded. And suddenly you've got all of these assets, like the making of type
Yeah.
assets to really build pre-awareness and post-awareness once the audiobook is out. And in all the years I've worked in publishing, it's the one this format's got generates more marketing assets
Mm.
than any other,
Yeah. That's a really good point.
as well as all the traditional stuff, because you can still
Yeah.
send out, galleys of the book, you can of the audiobook, you can,
Yeah.
your author can still do interviews, you can do all the traditional stuff, but
Yeah.
then you have these new bits and pieces too.
And then, like, are there any kind of common mistakes you see publishers um, fall victim to when they try and launch audiobooks, direct audiobook sales?
Mistakes.
That's quite
Yeah.
kind of a hard, I guess.
Mm,
So things like not having a good user experience, because you mentioned about researching on,
mm,
a good listening app might be one.
mm. Yeah, I think pricing is one as well.
Pricing,
It's
yes,
quite an odd thing to think about, right? Because the only place we've
yeah,
really had to buy audio for years on end was,
yeah,
it's a credit value given to the book, right? Because you pay your monthly
mm,
credit on Audible. Now, if you're
yeah,
consuming audiobooks on Spotify, you don't actually know what the value of the book is because you've already got
yeah,
a Spotify account, right?
yes,
Then, but I would, if you are starting with audio from the start and you don't even know where or how to price your audio, I would speak
mm,
to your peers in other
yeah,
publishing houses for advice because there are digital list prices, there's DLPs against audiobooks,
yeah,
but they span such a ridiculous range.
yeah,
And it's not always related to the length of the book or all these kind of, it's just ridiculous. The
mm,
scale of difference in these things. So really think about the pricing, but that has to be married against the where you're looking to sell them.
yeah,
Um, don't
yeah.
underestimate the importance of the jacket. This sounds really obvious, right?
No, in any format for anyone
In any
listening.
format, but with audio, like I still see examples sometimes where p people just send through the regular rectangular book jacket. And I was like, there you go. And you're like, doesn't look like an audiobook. The truth of the
Yeah.
matter is, audiobook jackets are only square. Do you know why? C
No, why?
because CDs were square.
Ah,
And before
okay.
that, why are CDs
Yeah.
square? Because vinyl was square. I guess the
Yeah.
it wasn't, but that's the only reason they're that shape. But
Right.
if
Interesting.
it's just one of the simple things in terms of
Mm,
shape, get that ready. But then really think about as all the care and attention you would give to your book jacket in print,
mm.
afford the same love and attention to the audiobook jacket because it doesn't necessarily have to look the same. Think about these things are pretty omnipresent across your design
Yeah.
thought generally, but
Yeah.
having your branding on the cover of that square is really, really important, particularly if your files that just makes it more easily discoverable with the eye. If someone's just browsing lots
Yeah.
of things or scrolling in an app. And then we know that in audio, series perform really, really, really well. Like
Ah,
really well.
yeah. Yeah.
Simplest thing in the world, put the number of the book from the series
Yeah.
on the jacket. Normally bottom right seems to perform really well,
Mm,
but just have the one, two, three, four, whatever it is in this there, because
yeah.
then that feeds that habit of people coming back for more on that. Um, the other thing is if you do some A/B testing, right, early doors with some books, get a feel, not just from your sales numbers, but also if you have room to get feedback from actual consumers on their feedback on the voice.
Mm, mm.
Never
Yes.
ever underestimate the voice. I'm going to come back to that. But the reason I'm saying
Okay.
is because when you're then if you're going down the route of using a real actor, a human in a room for a period of time, and you know there's someone that will perform well, A, do a good job and converts quite well into sales, and people like that person's voice,
Yeah.
you can do some really simple agreements by getting them to commit. Don't buy them in book by book. Have them
Yeah.
come in and say, look, well, we'd like you to record these five over this period of time, but we're going to buy your time on mass. There's some very simple old school
Yeah.
things to do like that. On this point about the importance of the voice,
Yes.
you've got to get it right. So we know statistically of all of Beats platforms, we saw a spike like about 2 or 3 years ago in people searching for narrator. So yes, they search for genre, they search for author, but people are
Yeah.
actively searching for the voice that they like. And that could
Interesting.
be
Yeah.
Sarah reading about uh, the weather, Sarah reading about fairies, Sarah reading about cucumbers, but they just like Sarah's voice. So
Yes.
we're watching this, and it's not, and
Yeah.
these habits are not related to genre. They're
Yeah.
related to one thing, and that's the voice. So all of our platforms now don't just have like the author photo and the author bio. We have the
Yeah.
narrator photo and the narrator bio as well, because we see that growth.
Yeah. Which is kind of a smaller portion of what we talk to our publishers about, which is metadata. Like
Hmm.
treating audio as the same as other format doesn't work
Yep.
because they are searching for, as you say, narrator names, running time, mood, you
All
know.
sorts.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
People search with audio because of the habit.
yes.
People have started searching on length, which is
Yes.
quite a daunting thing, right? Because
Yeah.
some audiobooks, I mean, I guess with paper, you look at like the thickness of the book,
Yeah.
oh, how much of a challenge is that going to be? With audio, there's literally on a lot of services, the numbers printed. And
Yeah.
it just says 4 hours, 21 minutes, or in some cases, 48 hours.
Mm,
That to some can feel like a massive chore, right?
yes.
So some people might buy based on that, knowing how they listen, like how regularly they listen, where they listen. So if
Yeah.
they know their commute into work and back, across a week,
Yeah.
is 5 hours, maybe they're just liking the idea of finishing a book
Yeah.
in one week and they'll pick
Interesting.
a 5 hour book, or they might,
Yeah.
there's lots of little things go on in the background based on the information we give them.
That's good
I know you
advice.
can change in our players, you can change the listening speed
Yes.
as well. So a lot of platforms only do that in
Yeah.
increments of like half. So let's
Right.
increase it to 1.5
Yeah.
and these kind of things. But we were watching the habit and we do it in tenths now. So you can go 1.1, 1.2,
Ah,
1.3.
that's good.
And the clever thing is it doesn't, for the first increments, and the most popular are
Yeah.
1.1 and 1.2, it doesn't
Yeah.
change the tone of the voice. What it actually does is squishes silence. So the system
Oh,
reads through it, removes unnecessarily long paragraph breaks,
yeah.
breaths, so it doesn't turn everyone into a chipmunk.
That's interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I'd never listened to Moby Dick. I've never read
Mm.
Moby Dick, so I bought the audio book, but quite quickly I was on times two. That's like
Did you last?
I haven't finished it. But that's interesting you say that because had that been available, I'd be like, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
because I think
yeah,
so much is lost.
yeah.
Can we go back to pricing?
Mm,
Because this is, I mean, obviously we're never really involved in pricing,
yeah.
but I think this seems like quite an important question about how does a publisher that's starting on their audio journey even think about pricing models? And you mentioned there were list prices, but this it's spanned. But
Mm.
should they think about one-off purchases, bundles, subscriptions, all of the above? Where do they start?
Yeah, because it can be really daunting.
Yeah,
The easy answer is all of the above, because I think you should just dip your toe in and try, right?
yeah,
But the reality is, subscription in the UK isn't a thing, really.
right. Okay.
Not in the grandest scheme. So I don't think you need
Mm,
to thinking locally. Don't think about that so much. But if
yeah,
people are publishers of English content. English is spoken worldwide, and therefore your content very easily should be available on platforms worldwide. But if you're
Yeah.
retailing off your own site anyway, all subject to rights, conforming to rights restrictions and those kind of things, I think you just have to marry your price up against the cost of creating the file. So you might be
Right.
paying in advance to the agent.
Yeah.
You might have audio included in your deal automatically,
Mm.
right? That
Hmm.
would be the first thing to try and get. Is just have all formats audio in there too. Lots of people will push to have an extra advance in there for audio, but you need to calculate your P&L on, a few things. There's the creation of the file and then the size of an advance you're going to have to pay in the first place. Then based on how
Yeah.
many units you project you can sell, and then work
Yeah.
backwards from there. Because
Right.
don't know how I feel about saying this on a on a recorded forum, but I always find the digital list prices are a little bit, I'm like, I don't even know what they're based on sometimes because I said
Right.
there's such a disparity between them that I can't
Mm.
quite work out the maths in there. And then different people, you can push really hard to get different discounts on these things. And someone's suddenly willing to just slice the DLP in half, then was it just an arbitrary number already? I
Mm.
don't really know. So I think it's way simpler just to think about, right, let's keep it simple to think about one book.
Yeah.
How much have I had to pay to acquire the rights to make this book? How much is it going to cost me to create this book?
Yeah.
Either by casting a great voice and paying for the studio's time to then output this file to me, or if you work with someone like an 11 Labs and go, right, they're going to create this for me in this amount of time, it costs this, and then work from there and plug that into your P&L. But the end point is you need to know where you're selling it. So
Yeah.
you're in control of your D2C deal, right? If you're going
Yeah.
to do your own e-commerce platform, that's much closer to home, and you're in control of how you're going to market it. Like how many people are you marketing to on your
Mm.
databases, etc., and how are you communicating
Mm.
with them and what you might already know about their purchase habits. And then you might be into the slightly grayer zone if you're suddenly looking at Audible and Spotify for the first time.
Yeah.
Um, but if you
Okay.
don't try, then you've got no chance of ever knowing.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
exactly. Okay. Let's move to some kind of future facing questions
oh,
now. Where do you see the next wave of opportunity in audiobooks? It's a hard
hmm.
question, but I'm sure you have an answer.
Over what period of time? Like,
You
next week?
decide.
It's really tricky because it's
Yeah.
audio is such a strange thing, right? Because it suddenly feels like it's new and now. But I put the first
Yes.
audiobook on Spotify in 2009, and they were
Yeah.
really a thing way before that.
Mm.
And of course, different markets have different levels of maturity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Wasn't the first AI book created in 2006 or something?
yeah, probably. I
Yeah.
mean, we all
Yeah.
buy our shopping on Tesco's. What do we think? What's that recommendation engine? Do you know
I
what I mean? It's not
I know.
AI
Yeah.
engineering either. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, I think there's going to be a rapid shift in
Mm.
everybody's ability to create quickly and more
Yes.
effectively and get to market, which does mean there's going to be more and more and more audio content in the marketplace
Mm.
ever before, which
Yeah.
does mean there's the greater need for making sure all the everyday stuff, the metadata,
Mm.
and all these things have to be bulletproof. Otherwise, you won't get discovered, right? So
Yeah.
that's there. And then this is the other reason going direct to consumer is because you're closer to that consumer already, right? So you can get
Yeah.
those sales in, and then maybe all the other platforms where you get the peripheral interest. Um, I think there's a lot. It's a big positive thing, right? Is that all right? English, the ability, if I know not everyone here will be English publishers, but if you're an English language publisher and English already
Mm.
being a global language, that's a massive opportunity.
Yeah.
And audio book platforms and services, like every country you can name. No, 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 I'll pull it back. Most countries you could name, even strange ones to us that might be surprising, um,
Yeah.
have audio platforms. It astounds me. When we go, I travel around or we're at the bigger international fairs, and
Mm.
people walk up from all countries around the world, go, "Hey, I've got an audiobook platform. And can we have
R-
English content?" And then I'm like, "Yeah, I don't create the content, but
Yeah. Yeah.
they can help
Yes.
you." They're like, "You should visit these guys." So, but in that's an opportunity, right? Because people
Mm.
will want content in English and lots of other languages too. So there's something about forging this wider network with those. Um, but I think the fundamentals of what we think an audiobook is today is going to
Yeah.
completely change. Because an audiobook is a file, it's a thing,
Yeah.
but I don't think it necessarily needs to stay being a thing. Because there's a blurring of the lines we're seeing between with all of the really positive moves that have happened around
Mm.
accessibility
Yes.
and you being able to now, that used to be called read aloud, right? On
Yes.
an ebook.
Yeah.
It's referred to as the play button. And what used to be quite
Yeah.
robotic text to speech
Yeah.
is now also being referred to as an audiobook. So I think those
Right.
lines are really gonna blur. And I
Interesting.
think in mature markets, US, UK, Scandinavia, I think the consumer's ear is really trained for what an
Mm.
audiobook is and their expectation and those kind of things. Whereas in markets where audio just isn't a thing yet, the consumer isn't really
Mm.
gonna know what to expect, what the difference is. Um,
Yeah.
but I think this will, I mentioned rights in a different point, but I think this
Yes.
there could also be a big change in what the rights landscape looks like here, because I think we literally will be able to dial up books published in any language and just listen to them whichever language we want at some point in time. Not tomorrow, but if you suddenly hear from a publishing friend in, I don't know, Brazil or Korea about this amazing book they've read, and you'd be like, "Oh, is there an English publisher yet?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't know. We're at the fair trying to." I think you'll just be at a point where you could just go play and
Yeah.
listen to it in English or French or Spanish or
Yeah.
German. So I
Which
think
is
there's going
interesting.
to be a
Yeah.
massive change. Not immediate. I don't want to scare people, but this it should be seen as an opportunity, not as
Mm.
a reason to get your head around audio, as opposed to something to be worried about.
So if we were having this conversation in 3 years and I was asking the same questions,
Mm.
the things you think would have changed would be internationalization of content.
Yeah, I think that will change dramatically.
Yeah.
Um, I think there'll be. I wrote a piece on this in a few of the trade magazines around this theory about two-tier audio platforms. And
Ah,
actually, I think step one of that happened this week, where Audible announced their two different price points.
yes.
For there's amazing single voice recordings. There's some amazing AI generated voice recordings coming out, and then you've got the complete opposite, these kind of mega premium audio products. You've got like the
Mm,
Harry Potter series now right at the top of the chain, and then these great other bits and pieces that are starting to come out that the platforms are making themselves.
yeah.
Expensive. So it makes kind of sense that the platforms are going to charge more money if you want to listen to those. So I think the platforms are going to start to separate
Yeah.
and have different price points because the consumer's ears will be looking for slightly different things. It's no different
Yeah.
in my head than having paperback buyers and hardback buyers, or
Yep.
some of us are quite happy with our normal streamed whatever's on TV, and some of us will pay a little bit more money for Ultra HD or something.
Yeah.
Different strokes for different folks. Um,
Interesting.
and I've been saying this for a long time, but I really believe it's still going to come, is shorter form content because
Yes.
our attention span in everything
Yes.
else we do is shorter. So
Yeah.
one stat, so on Beat we analyze the hell out of everything. So we know average listening times per day, and
Right.
it's always around between 40 and 43 minutes a day is the
Right.
average listening time.
Okay. Mm.
Um, that's a commute, right? Or that's a
Yep.
drive in the car, like when you've dropped driven back from the kids to school, or caught the train
Yeah.
somewhere. It feels like a thing, and it's
Yeah.
much longer than a podcast episode.
Yes.
And we consume these in that way. Yet in English, there hasn't been much creation of short form content
Mm,
match the consumer's consumption habits. In Scandinavia, it's becoming a little bit more common, and people are making
okay.
audio only, audio first, short form, serialized content to respond to habit.
Yeah.
And I still think that will come because like audio is just growing as a medium so
Yeah.
much that
Yeah.
there has to be a little bit more data insight driven creation. That
Yeah.
makes it sound really robotic. I still mean a
No,
great
it's
author
interesting.
writing a thing, but it being
Yeah.
produced in audio for a particular purpose, maybe with a like if it's a piece of fiction, a cliffhanger on every half an hour.
Mm,
And that, that would make a lot of sense to me. So I think that will come. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, that's fascinating, actually. Yes, certainly on the short form, because I think about, m m my children, myself.
Hmm.
Yes, and the attention spans, as you say.
But but it's not to say that of course there's room for these
Of
very long
course.
immersive things, and you like when you suddenly look up and
Yeah.
you've been immersed in a story, be it in print or in your head for
Yes.
2 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's room for everything.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But anyway.
Yeah, but and in Germany for in non-fiction, have had a platform. Well, they're everywhere, but it's a German company called Blinkist for years, which is
Oh, yes.
short form
Yes.
kind of business and learning audio,
Yeah. Which is
and that's
great.
great because
Yeah.
we eat up bite-sized content all the
Yeah.
time, and maybe you know what, I'm every now and then I'll be interested in something historical
Yeah.
or or something biographical, but I might not want to read a book that long or spend 10 hours on it.
Yeah.
But I'm interested. So
Yes.
yeah, give me a couple of half hours on that, and I might be
Mm,
happy. And then,
yeah.
oh, you know what? And then I might be also interested in American history, and I might also be interested in the history of Africa or whatever it might be. And then people start to, but I think this is all the hangover from the ebook is a direct replica of a print book because it's
Yeah.
words printed. Like one's
Yeah.
words represented, written words. One's on paper, one's on e-ink.
Yeah.
The audiobook has just fallen into that same thing of being a mirror of
Mm,
this transcript, but it just doesn't have to be. Like in the
mm,
UK, we've had abridged versions for years, mostly
yeah.
created for radio, but they're essentially bite-sized versions of not what the author originally intended.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But we
Okay.
can still say we've read Jane Eyre.
Yes. Interesting. Um, okay. This is the last question, and then thank
Hmm.
you. I'm going to let you have your weekend. Uh, so if there is one thing you'd encourage publishers listening to us talk to
Hmm.
start thinking about tomorrow, what would it be in terms of audiobooks and selling
Hmm.
directly?
It's the broader one thing is be
Yeah.
open-minded and embrace the new. Like don't be
Yeah.
fearful. Don't
Yeah.
like if anyone hasn't started audio already, it's because of some sense of trepidation or not having that knowledge
Yeah.
skill. Just don't let that continue being the thing. Embrace the new because the tools
Mm,
out there are way better than you've ever had before. So there's no
yeah.
cost doesn't have to be a barrier anymore to creating because you can make audiobooks of a high quality,
Mm,
affordable and quickly. And there's no barrier to selling anymore, right?
yeah.
Because you can sell directly from your own website.
Yeah.
You have your other usual retail platforms, and you should want to have that relationship with your readers already. And
Yeah.
if you've got that relationship, then like work with them on audio because you can speak to them in advance, like we said, work out what it is they want, what's missing for them, what they like to hear in audio, etc.
Yeah.
Embrace the new. That's cheesy, isn't it? But
No,
be open-minded
it's
and
wise
embrace the new.
words. It is because I think a lot of publishers are apprehensive, it's intimidating, they're worried about resource. So you're right. And I
But
think it's
dipping
interesting.
your toe is always better than not doing it. You try something
Yeah,
rather than not try it.
yeah,
And there's a lot of great people out there to speak to who've tried things
yeah,
before. It's just
yeah.
such a collaborative industry, I think, right? Publishing. So
Yeah,
even your peers,
exactly.
yes, you
Yes.
might kind of outbid each other on books or outsell each other once you've bought the
Yeah,
right, all these kind of things. But I find it highly collaborative, and someone
yeah,
will have tried what you're thinking of already.
yeah,
And then there's lots of tools and companies like ours and
yeah,
others out there that make it easy, and it didn't used to be.
yeah.
So
So you're going to be at London Book Fair. We're doing a session on shelf. What's the
yeah, we're
stand
going to
number, the
it's
time?
it's going to be on Beats shelf, but
Yep.
do are going to come along as well, right? So we're going to
Yes.
join thing.
Yep.
Beats stand is at 5E110 in the new audio and tech zone.
Great.
Wednesday, the 11th at 11 o'clock. And we're
Perfect.
going to do walkthroughs of how Shelf actually works and just literally show you buy this, it appears here, enjoy it, play it, want the next one, it appears
Yeah.
here. Um,
Yeah.
myself and Beats CEO Newell will be there. You guys will hope someone from Supadu will
Yes,
be there. We
I'll
can
be
ask lots
there.
of questions.
I'm there.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Um, so yeah, we'll be
Okay.
there. Look forward to seeing everyone.
So sorry, everyone, we've run out of time for questions, but we'll be sending the recording and Nathan will put your contact details. So if anyone's got
Oh,
any
yeah,
questions,
yeah, of course.
they can contact you directly. And
Great.
thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you.
really interesting.
It's always nice to chat. Enjoy your weekend.
Have a great weekend, everyone, and thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.